This is a, we would dub it as a semi-internal event. We falsely claim that it is a round table, which is stated here at the, on the panel. This is not a circle, as you can see, but we'll manage. This is also a very, in terms of gender political considerations, a very highly problematic panel, but I'm sure we will do an effort to give it our best. I will briefly present you our panelists. We have with us Mr. Boris Mijatović, a member of Parliament, Bundestag, Bündnis 90 Die Grünen. We have Radomir Lazović, a member of Parliament and co-president of the Green Left Front. Mika, if you will. We have Natan internationally Albahari, who is International Secretary of Pokret Slobodnih građana and a former member of Parliament. And last but certainly not least, we have Anton Hofreiter, who is also a member of Parliament and the Bundestag, and also chair of the Committee on EU Affairs at the Bundestag. My name is Milan Bogdanović from the Heinrich-Böll Foundation here in Belgrade. And let us jump straight into it. So we've, in a way, singled out recent developments at EU policy level, which we see as very pertinent to the situation in Serbia, and we want to discuss whether it is so and in which way can we speak of a forward momentum in this situation, namely the European Parliament resolution on Serbia and the European Commission country report. So in a way, this is, I would say, this is a conversation among allies and like-minded political actors on how to make European solidarity more effective. Speaking of that, I would give the floor first to Radomir, being a local representative. And Radomir, I would like to ask you about your comment about the process that led to the adoption of the European Parliament resolution. Can you be specific about, well, basically, are we happy with the wording? Could the wording have been stronger? Do you expect more concrete follow-up mechanisms, and how do we, or you, or all of us together, prevent this from being another document that Vučić's government will dismiss as anti-Serbian activity?
Thank you for the question and everything. But first of all, I would like to welcome our friends from Germany, Boris and Tony, who have been allies and someone that we can talk to and also work together on trying to improve things in Serbia. And for us as Green Left Front, and I know our colleague is for Pokret Slobodnih građana, our connections with our sister parties from all over Europe has been really important, and we will try to build upon that on that relations. Also, thank you for coming, and thanks to everyone who is watching online of this event. For us, this situation in Serbia can be called a big social and political and soon to become also a financial crisis that is happening, and we have tried to participate and to pull in every front that is available. So we fought on the streets, we fought in the institutions, and we fought on the international level. And I would say that this resolution of the European Parliament that we had, how much time ago? A few weeks, yeah. Some of the people we talked from European Parliament would say that it is the harshest resolution that was ever taken in European Parliament, not only about Serbia, but in general. And I would say that knowing this diplomatic language a little bit, well, Natan knows it much better, but I would say that it is so, that there is no question that in that resolution we have really detailed list of all the problems with the moment in which we are now, with the protests, with government repression towards the citizens, with problems that aroused after the demolition of the canopy and everything that happened after that, including the repression against students, against citizens, against educational workers, against everybody who tries to say something critical towards the government. But I would say that this resolution comes after the first one. So like we had this other resolution of European Parliament that was voted after the elections that we had, the last elections, which was called the resolution about the electoral fraud in Serbia. So we can say that Europe, that whole of the countries see what's happening here, in more or less, because around 500 people, 500 European members voted for these resolutions. Yes, it is true that these problems were in the reports of the European Union many times, but now they are actually getting the attention that they should have, and we are glad that we contributed in this, and we will pursue this in the international level. We will try to have concrete actions that are regarding to these resolutions and findings that we had. I would say it is not up to European Union or Germany or anyone else to fight our battles, but it is good to have friends, it is good to have support, it is good that someone recognizes your struggle, that sees what's happening here, and that has a clear stances of what's happening in our country. I would also like to say that we could call this some sort of international affairs offensive that we had in the last year or months. It started because, of course, we had a historically big protest in Serbia and mass gatherings and struggle that was obvious to everybody, but it was also, we are of course proud of our part that we took in this. What we hope for, and I'm sure that we will have more time to speak with our guests that are just starting their visit in Belgrade, is that after the European Union, European Parliament, European big families, we would like to show some attention to the member countries. We would like to speak more with concrete countries, especially with Germany, who is one of the most important partners of Serbia. We would like to see to develop our cooperation more in that direction. And I think that this is a process that cannot last short. It will last for some time, but what we are doing here, we're not only speaking about taking Vučić down or changing the government, we are speaking about creating some other different, better Serbia for our citizens. And we feel, as the pro-European organizations, we feel that we should do this together with our international partners. And for us, it is really nice that people from Bundestag and are here. And I really hope that tomorrow we will have a meeting in the Parliament, and after that we will have also press statements, and we will try to explain to the people that what's actually the result of our cooperation. And for the beginning, I would stop here and then maybe contribute a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you, Radomir. Mr. Hofreiter, I would like to include you next in our panel. I have a twofold question. One has inevitably to do with your post as the chair of the EU Affairs Committee in the Bundestag. But before that, I would like to, and the same also goes for Boris in the next round, using your presence here as an outsider of sorts, also ask you about the general comment on your perception and your party's perception and perception of your fellow citizens, if you will, generally about the events in Serbia in the last year. And to my second question, in your capacity as the chair of the committee, can you give us a glimpse of the committee's current attitude towards Serbia? How has it evolved, perhaps, and was there an evolution in these past 12 months, and what's the you deal with all accession countries basically. So how does Serbia compare in terms of being a source of attention and concern? How does it compare to, say, Bosnia or Georgia? Is it what's the level and what's the nature of this concern?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all of you being here. We are happy to be here in Belgrade. And first of all, to make it very clear, for us as Greens, we really want to see Serbia one day as a member of the European Union. We really wanted that the people of Serbia have democracy, freedom of speech, rule of law, and a real fight against corruption, and that could better happen as a member of the European Union. And we also see it as a necessity for the European Union to enlarge in this harsh struggle we see now on the world when imperialism and fascism is growing stronger and stronger. When we look to China, when we look to Russia, which is an imperialistic fascist government, but also we look with great concern to the US. When we now come to Serbia, what's happening in Serbia? We look with great concern to Serbia because the Serbian government is not doing a good job when it comes to democracy, freedom of speech, when it comes to rule of law, when it comes to fight of corruption. In the contrary, we see the current government as a big problem in all these fields, and the Serbian government is pulling Serbia away from the European Union and is a danger for the future of the well-being of the Serbian people. We very closely follow what happened with in Novi Sad. We saw what the students and the opposition did. We saw how many people were on the street. I think Boris will speak maybe more about it, but he was also observer for elections. We closely followed that the government frauded the elections, at least in parts. We know about all the recommendations, so we see what is happening. And we also had Marta Kos in our last committee session, and I think the last enlargement report was one of the best enlargement reports the European Union ever produced, because it was not so technically, but it was politically in a way that it focused on the fundamentals. Because the fundamentals are most important. Of course, it's also necessary that a government and a country is technically able to reach the Copenhagen criteria. But all this is nothing without the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are democracy, rule of law, fight against corruption, freedom of speech, and freedom of media. And that was the first time that the Commission made it totally clear. And there we see that Serbia and the Serbian government is imposing a lot of problems on the future of the Serbian people. It's not only Serbia, it's also Georgia, which has a big problem. We also have concerns when it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we see other countries who are making really huge progress. When we look to Montenegro, when we look to Albania, when we look to Moldova, when you also look to Ukraine, which is reforming, still with problems, while they fight a really brutal war against a horrible aggressor. So it's the Serbian government who is pulling Serbia away from the European Union. And we follow it very closely. We have not every week, but very, very regularly. We have a civil society, we have experts in our committee, and so we follow it very closely. And I think because of the change of the geopolitical landscape, now most countries of the European Union want European Union to enlarge. But it's not possible if a government if a parliament is not working in the right direction on the fundamentals, and we see here exactly the contrary. And that's a big concern for us, and it's also a big concern from our side for the good future of the Serbian people.
Thank you, Mr. Hofreiter. Nathan, I would like to ask you now a question, maybe to piggyback on Mr. Hofreiter's statement and the assessment of the European Commission's, specifically the report. Many have assessed it to be, rightfully so, one of the harshest worded reports, given the inherent diplomatic tone of the report. One cannot expect this document to sound as the resolution of the Parliament does, for instance, but nevertheless, this democratic backsliding and the fundamentals issue has been singled out as a very harsh statement. How would you comment it, and especially in compared and in the local playing field, where we have had, I would say, rising Euroscepticism or Euro-confusionism. I don't know how to describe it properly in the last year within this popular citizens and student movement, where we have many outsiders' perspectives being harsh on the movement for not embracing EU accession strong enough. How would you assess those two issues back to back?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I'm glad that I, as liberal, or we, my party, PSG, is able to have very good relations with the Green Left Front, and I hope that our cooperation can also be seen as a good example for liberals and Greens to cooperate in other countries as well, moving forward. But to come back to your question, and there's lots to unpack there of the resolution, the country report, and the impact and the perception here in Serbia. I would agree that this is, as you said, the harshest report, but I would maybe use the word the most realistic report that we have seen so far regarding Serbia. And I think it's important to note where this comes from. It's not that Serbia, within the last year, has suddenly become so much worse than it was labeled in the previous reports. It's the fact, and I think we can agree here, is that Serbia has been, or the Serbian government, when dealing with the EU, has predominantly, up until last year, been dealing with the EPP. They have been always in charge, and the parliament, as the rapporteur for Serbia, has come from the EPP until last year, the previous 10 years. EPP has led the enlargement commission portfolio also for the last 3 commissions. This is the first time we have a commissioner coming from our family, from the Renew group. The Liberal group has taken that portfolio. And you're able to sense a difference. Honestly, I believe that over the last decade or so, the EPP, as SNS is a member of the group, an associate member, has done a lot to, well, protect them, to not be as harsh, not to be as critical, whether it was an indirect agreement, but it felt like it was that President Vučić and Serbia, and this also goes to the rule of Ms. Merkel and when she was in charge in Germany under the rule of CDU, that they will not push Mr. Vučić and his government too much. That they will say in public, yes, we need rule of law, yes, we need democracy, but there was nothing really there was no real pressure for Serbia to deliver on those things. It was the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue was the main key driver of everything, and this was for the Europe, or at least for some of the European states and European institutions, the main concern. what we were saying for the past 10 years when I was in civil society and later when I joined PSG was, please do not sacrifice your values, do not sacrifice Serbia's democracy, the freedom of press, the rule of law, in exchange for dealing with Kosovo. We said that's important, but those two should be two separate issues, and Serbia should be judged on its merits on the fundamental values. Kosovo and the dialogue is extremely important, but it should not impede any sort of merit work or reforms on this other track. So what we see today is a realistic report of the Cabinet of Commissioner Kos. Yes, there is still some diplomatic language, and of course you're always going to see diplomatic language. But the way it has been phrased, the tone that has been given is one serious hit against this government, a welcome one, especially for all pro-European progressive forces in this country, in the region, on what the situation in Serbia is like. And today we saw in Brussels, Commissioner Kos gave a very critical overview, again regarding Mr. Vučić and his policies, where it was declared that you can no longer sit on two chairs, you cannot buy cheap Russian gas, and not imply the most important foreign policy and security aspect of the European Union, that is the sanctions on Russia, that you cannot continually attack the EU from the President, Prime Minister, members of Parliament, and then yet expect the EU to open clusters and give you money like an ATM. It's extremely important the EU cannot be treated like an ATM machine, and this is what this government has been doing. This government, the SNS government, has, for the last decade, been just managing reforms at a level where they can say, look, we did something, we made some accomplishments, now we can unlock the new IPA funding, we can unlock the growth plan for the Western Balkans, we can unlock these funds and those funds, which unfortunately have been filling Mr. Vučić's coffers, but without real benefit for the Serbian citizens. So in that aspect, and this is also important when it comes to the second part of, or the third part of the question, the perception of this report in Serbia, over the years we have seen the way that this diplomatic language has been delivered here to be one of the reasons why pro-EU voters have lost faith in the EU. Because pro-EU voters see the EU as a foundation of democratic governance, good governance, the fundamentals as we talked about. And then when you have officials come and say, my dear friend Alec, we congratulate you on these amazing reforms, and we're all sitting here and saying, wait, what amazing reforms? In the fight against corruption, in the malign influence that's taken hold in Serbia with Russian training camps being sent provocateurs in the region, the amounts of money that's been stolen, or the individual freedoms that have been reduced. What are these positive reforms? So that kind of language turned away a lot of people from the EU, and seeing the EU as a value-based organization, they see it as any other interest-based organization. And I think this is on part of the EU where they need to improve when it comes to the communication, when it comes to actions, both member states and EU institutions. The EU Parliament has been the most forward-looking institution, and the one for years now where with the resolutions, with working with the progressive and pro-European opposition here, has taken a very correct stance. Now we see the rest of the institutions following suit, and we hope member states will move as well. So if we want, when we look at the students, for example, and the question is, well, why are there no EU flags? Maybe the question is, why don't the students, young people, see the EU as I was seen maybe 20 years ago as a factor of positive and good change? I think that there is a need to again return the way that the EU is looked upon here in Serbia as this positive force, a progressive force, a force for good, but that is going to take some time. And we're making progress. This report, the resolutions, having our guests come from member states, from the Bundestag, and really talking about that the EU is not only EPP, that the EU is not only some allies of Mr. Vučić, but there is a diverse a diverse amount of people and countries that actually have a different view, a positive view, and I think we need to communicate that also here in Serbia.
Hvala, Natane. Boris, last but not least, I would like to ask you basically the same first half of the question that I asked Anton, especially since you have been also quite vocal, I would say, about the events in Serbia in the past year, supportive towards the people's right of assembly and condemning the cases of police brutality, of which there have been so many, and including yesterday, and I haven't followed the news in the last couple of hours, so it's an hourly basis that we are speaking of now. So I would like to ask you about the general perception of the current situation in Serbia from your vantage point, and also German Greens have been traditionally vocal on human rights issues in many contexts, including this one. But also, I would like a realistic assessment from you in the German politics, in German media, in German public. How much awareness is there really of what's been happening in Serbia beyond the issues of economic cooperation or migration and issues that we know are big political or modestly present political issues in Germany, apart from that?
Yeah, let me start with first of all saying hello to our friends here in Zeleno-levog front and PSG. I remember very well when Natan and Radomir were in Berlin, when the Ampel was still working well, and you guys brought Boko Stefanovic as well, so it was part of an Ampel exchange and visit. So basically these kind of things worked out. And I'm happy to be here and share the perspectives, because on the end of what I'm going to say now, I will show that we have a common task. Not only you guys here in Serbia, seriously, you are harder facing the task, but we all in Europe face a task of autocratic systems. But let me start answering the question that you mentioned with the attention and the perception. There's two ways, and I start with a personal one. So there's one of migrants from the Balkans. So my father is a guest worker, came in the late 60s. I have a father from here, from former Yugoslavia. I have a German mother. I don't speak any language, blah, 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 blah. On the end of the day, you have a migrant society, guest worker kids like me. You have in the 90s people fleeing from the war, and you have migrants for economic reasons, finding a job. I was astonished how many doctors, for example, from Bosnia-Herzegovina work today in Germany. It's about 1,200. And if you're a little familiar with education, forming doctors is one of the most expensive formation that you can join. So basically this is something where we have to talk also about brain drain and losing capacities in the region. But coming back to the perception, this is one perception that is granted to a society that is bus driver, that is worker in an industry, that is a teacher, that is a professor, whatever, that is having some kind of connections to the region, like myself, so they are memories to grandparents or whatever. The second is, and that is probably more what you're asking for, how much is German public aware of the protests? And I can tell you, I think they are pretty much aware. Big incidents are normally displayed on the primetime news agencies. So 1st of November, Novi Sad, pictures, primetime, it's called Tagesschau, it's like from 8 to 8:15. Primetime was presented. 15th of March, the huge, like 300,000, 500,000 people protesting here in Belgrade was presented. The collapse in Novi Sad of the canopy was presented. So, and mid of August, then it starts getting smaller, but mid of August also the violence of the police was issued in German public. And all these things lead to the question, how do we deal with this and how is the public perceiving it? And so there is one part that has a connection and is trying to defend and explain, well, it's the Balkans, and there's the other part that doesn't understand really what is going on. And Is it that hot-blooded guys and they have temper and they cannot control it or whatever? So these kind of things also enter into politics. And when I started working in Bundestag in 2021, I wanted to fight these kind of prejudices because I think it's important to say this is very normal people living here and they have a very normal approach to their society. So we try to issue any occasion to put light on the Balkans. So we try to have debates and plenaries. We try to issue invitations like we had. We had other exchange formats. Tony demanded to have, next to the Berlin process, an exchange for the parliamentarians as well. So stuff like that was issued. And this is progressing now, and this is leading that more and more documentaries show up. So basically we have had, just this Sunday, we have had on prime time again, 7 p.m., it was about weapons in the Balkans and the amoks here in Serbia in 2023 it was, right? That led to the opposition coalition, Serbia Against Violence. And we had like, it was half an hour or something, was reporting and following and introducing very normal people. There was a guy that lost his daughter in one of the schools and he could tell to the public his feelings about it, and he was joining in the protest. So basically you see this kind of perception is real and is granted. But to highlight also, maybe you have heard this bodybuilder in Tuzla who killed his wife live on social media. Stuff like that also happens to be issue in public debates and femicides all over Europe, not only the Balkans, because we were asking how much is it here, but how much is it somewhere else? So basically we looked on this kind of issues on rape and this kind of social media driven, attention driven, complete, weird stuff that is not only bounded to this region and very important for me. Because I wanted to finish off by saying this task we are facing is a common one. You guys are fighting for rule of law and for a fair chance and a free choice in elections. And we see that there is manipulation on media and there is money from Russia, from China, going into elections all over Europe. We have seen that in Poland, we have seen that in Germany, we have seen that we have an extremist party sitting in the Bundestag with nearly 25% that has had money from Moscow to run their campaigns. There is the charge still going on who paid for their billboards that were not really addressed but taking their topics. So there were kind of, threats to the democratic system that go in France, you can see it in many other countries as well. In some countries, like Tony already mentioned, they are successful. So this is kind of a common challenge we have to face. Not only you guys here in Serbia stand alone fighting for the rule of law, and this is not a little fight, to be very clear, this is not done by one election. Even if you guys have 51%, it will not make like this and then everything's over. It's a set of mind. Hey neighbor, can you help me? Hey friend, can you help me? Hey policeman, please, we've been to school together. This kind of corruption starts in very simple things, and this is a common thing we have in Europe as well. We have to fight this from the very beginning, and it's nothing less than the complete mindset that has to be corrected or that has to be issued in political debates, maybe for so far.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please. You said something about these things that happening before this demolition of the canopy, the mass shootings and so on. And you would say that in some sort of maybe better developed democracy, or I don't know, a place with a rule of law, then you would have some changes. Something would change. If you have this kind of aggression, violence on TV, then let's regulate this. But the problem is that the regulator is not working because the regulator is working for the government. When the canopy falls, when we ask for the responsible ones, when we see someone needs to go to jail because of this, so many people die, our chairman of the parliament says, yes, but we're not sure what happened. Maybe it's the ones that are protesting that organize this terrorism act, so you can start a revolution in Serbia. And these kind of things are tearing us completely emotionally apart. Because it is one thing that we are speaking about politics, we are speaking of development, where the money should go or not, and stuff like that. That is one thing. We are all also really emotional about that also. But these things are really tearing apart the heart of these people. And I would like to add something about this resolution. So we are always coming back to this because it is a really important thing that we have such a big recognition of situation that is coming in Serbia for some time. I mean, what was really important here is that there is no dilemma who is responsible this time. It's not about the language. Language is going to be, as you said, not diplomatic, because it's a diplomatic thing. I mean, it's what it is. But the good thing is that we have it now, that we know who is responsible. It's the government. If they are having all the power in their hands, that shouldn't be by the law, but okay, that's the situation. They have all the power, so they have all the responsibility about this. And for us, we are aware that things are not going to change overnight, and this is why when we are talking here or wherever, we are trying to explain to people that Vučić is one thing. It's the most important thing, and we recently, Pokret slobodnih građana and Zeleno-levi front made this strategic partnership, and in the first sentences there is this goal, this necessity that we change the government. It's a necessity. Without this, we cannot talk about advancement in any of them. But that's just one thing. What we want to do is to create a country completely based on the rule of law, on democratic principles, of the environmental, of different kind of ideas that we have. It is not that we agree on every single detail, but this is the Pokret slobodnih građana is one of the closest organizations to Green Left Front. That is why we created this, because we don't have this luxury not to cooperate. And that is our main message that we are trying to give to all the organizations in Serbia, that we need to at least coordinate if we cannot cooperate completely. And I'm saying this because we feel that this moment in Serbia is really crucial, and really thank you for coming in that moment, because this has been going on for a year, more than a year now, and this situation really needs some resolvement. This society needs to go forward from this. We didn't go forward after the mass shootings. It was heartbreaking to see this. We didn't go forward after many other crises that we had before. Now I really think that this is the moment that we should really resolve, go to some resolvement, and then take the big steps going to the European Union. That for us, that is the way that we should work. That is the way that we should do. And this thing with the crisis in Ukraine, I mean aggression on the Ukraine, now is let's say globally a window in which Serbia could use into becoming part of the European Union. See what's happening. And Tony, you mentioned it. Both Albania, Montenegro, they are advancing with big steps. Is it that? I wouldn't say it's that ambitious or too much ambitious to say that we want to be part of Europe by the 2032. Can it be a date? Can it be an idea? Can it be something that we at least try to fulfill? Yeah, someone will say, well, maybe not, but why not try to do it? I really think that for Serbia there shouldn't be, if we are in positions of power, if we are in a situation after the SNS government, I really think that we have the right to say we want to see Serbia in Europe by the 2032. And we know there are a lot of problems, but who is going to solve them? If not the next government that is going to be in power. And I think that that is what we are running for. That's what we want to do. Of course, not only us, not only our two organizations. We are open to everybody who wants to pursue this goal. Yeah, sorry for my English. But we want to fight for it. And I think that's an honest position to take. Yeah.
Can I just react on the...
Yeah, please.
I hope I didn't say it wrongly, but this incident, this fall down of the canopy killed 16 persons. In no chance in public prosecution there should be a question about to investigate for this and to be as keen on it as possible. And there has been a huge request to do so. And fundamentally for this kind of things is a media that is reporting on this and that is investigating, that is not blaming, reporting conspiracy theories by parliamentarian persons. There is not, I mean, the push for the investigation is the first task. And we had mass shootings as well by right wings in my federal state, in Hanau, where migrants were killed. And the push and the pressure on the police to open up their files, to change something in the, this is coming from a media. That's why we always refer to a media that is doing their job and not repeating only what one person in power says, or two persons or three persons. And let me be there very clear. I think this kind of incident to be, referring to as a conspiracy theory is just leading away from the subject. As far as I know, the corruption case was already made on this train station. More than 100 million, euros have been missing or been in question. And then you change this and that, and then my friend is investigating and stuff like that. These things need to be opened up. That's why we have investigative journalism. That's why we have protection for these works and for these standards of works. And that is so important that professors who learn and teach these kind of subjects, for example, in Novi Sad, are protected, not only here in Serbia, but also by a European Union and the European neighbors that are interested in it. And one last thing about investigations, I see it also in other countries when I'm here in the region. For example, in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Go and look there for police violence and speak to human rights defenders. They will tell you the cases. And then it's the chief of police who is not dealing properly or working properly with the prosecutor, and the prosecutor, if he doesn't take the case. Look for the guys who are in opposition in RS who have lost it. Nebojša Vukanović has lost 2 times his cars by burning. Brano Borenović has been attacked by pepper spray in front of his house. Any results? Seriously, these kind of things have to be investigated, and there has to be a journalism investigative who is working on these subjects. And that's why we always refer to media and the strength of media to be properly working.
I'll just quickly react, Boris, to your previous comment where you mentioned the concept of solidarity as a precondition of societal change, which we are here not just talking about changing the current regime in Serbia. It may be in the preamble of the ZLFPSG cooperation memorandum, rightfully so, but for instance, it's not a de facto request by the student movement, which kind of galvanized this whole rebellion. And yet we've seen, by this very same movement, we've seen this onslaught of solidarity in our society. Many of us believe that it was not a possibility in a society so dominated by violence as this one has been for the past 13 or 35 years. And yet, and then going back to Nathan's statement on the general disillusionment of Serbian citizens with the EU for its doing or lack of doing, we have EU officials who basically repeat what I also believe to be quite a cynical statement, especially as time goes by, which is this stabulocratic mantra of whom should we talk with. There is nobody to talk with. The opposition is so fragmented and there is nobody to talk with. The student movement is leaderless, and it creates sort of this limbo that we are experiencing right now. How would you comment that, Nathan, but also everybody else on the panel?
Well, look, the EU, in a way, it's a very bureaucratic creature. And sometimes it takes a lot of push to have, especially the Commission, find creative ways of dealing with issues or finding ways to communicate outside of the box. And Serbia is something that's outside of the box. Because on one hand, you have a government that says we want to join, formally it says, we want to join the EU, but it does everything possible to move away from the EU. And Brussels has a difficult time of understanding that, because they say in conversations, well, your government has taken some steps, has laws, has put this as a strategic orientation, but then it does nothing to demonstrate its commitment to that strategic orientation, and in that sense, Brussels is sometimes a bit confused. That's not to absolve them of the past 10 years, but it's taken a long time to realize what they're dealing with here in Serbia. And I think with the efforts of both us in a pro-European opposition and civil society, we have made strides in the last several years, both in Brussels and member states, in the public, to get the European public to understand better what is going on here. It's still going to be a process. It's not going to finish overnight. And we still have a lot of work in front of us. But I think we've made some good steps. You know, when it comes to how should the EU deal with either the opposition or the students, our recommendation to the EU is always, when you visit Serbia and officials, make sure you meet with the pro-European forces and with civil society. We encourage also the student movement to meet with EU officials, and they do have that capacity, but at certain points they refuse to do that. That's really on them. I think that's a mistake. I think that when we had Kaja Kallas or Marta Kos here, that they should have taken the opportunity to meet and explain their stances. I can say that I understand perhaps why they didn't want to meet, but then it leaves the impression of, well, how serious are we in dealing with politics? Because it's a complex game. And sometimes you have to sit at the table with people you may not like, with people you have completely different views. But that's the only way to get things done, is to expand on your position, defend your position, try to argue it to the other side, and try to build support for where you stand. Saying no or boycotting and not participating in the process, I think can only have negative consequences. In Serbia, we've seen what happens when you boycott the parliament, when you boycott elections. It doesn't really lead us in a positive direction. So in that sense, when it comes to EU officials, I still think that they should continue to reach out, both to the student movement. My recommendation to the student movement is you need representatives to speak on your behalf. If you're going to be taken as a serious political force, and for change to happen, and for you as a political force, you need to have not only support in your country, but you also have to have recognition from outside. It's not enough to say, well, I'm doing it my own way, I'm not going to talk to the world. No, you have to do both. And if we really want to see positive change happen here, we need, yes, support from the people of Serbia for that, but we also need support from our European friends and allies to say, yes, we're going to be partners with you, we're going to work together. We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to have 100% agreement. I mean, PSG and the Green Left Front, we don't agree 100% on everything, and it's good that we don't, because then we will be one party. But we're not. We have two different ideologies. We're progressive. We agree on the key things. Sure, there are differences in some aspects, and I think that's healthy. And I think those differences can actually create even a better and more positive atmosphere. So in that sense, that's I think how the movement itself should see the EU, and vice versa.
I think that European Union, but also I know it from members of our parliament who tell me with whom we should talk, that there's only Vučić and his government and nobody else. That's just a kind of laziness, or if you just don't want. Because if you want to talk to somebody else, you will find student movement, you will find civil society, you will find opposition. So if people tell this, it's indications that they don't want to really see the reality, and that they continue to make a politics which relies on the so-called strongmen. The strongmen are mostly not so strong, but it's a kind of politics. Okay, it's much more easier. We'll rely on this authoritarian guy, and then we can deal with him, even if he makes us a lot of problems. It's a kind of laziness, and I think it's not real. It's often sold to people as real politics, because it's a harsh world and it's how it's going on. But is it not? Because in the end, you always get problems with this kind of guys. And so real politics is really looking to your own interests and the interests of democratic European countries is not to make authoritarian leaders stronger, but to make democratic movements, democratic parties stronger, because in the end, for democratic countries, it's always complicated to work together with dictatorships and authoritarian countries, because dictatorships and authoritarian countries in the end always act against democratic countries, because authoritarian and dictators always know, as long as there are some democratic countries on the world and people could see that there are countries where you are able to speak free, where there is less corruption, where you have independent courts, where you have independent media, there's always the danger that the people of your own country say that I also want. Because mostly this country are, not always, but mostly this country are more wealthy, and people for sure live much better in this kind of countries. So it's always in the interest of dictators and authoritarian leaders to destroy democracy where they find it. So it's also against the interest. It's, in my opinion, it's a kind of laziness and a kind of, let's say it so blunt, stupidness.
Thank you. This could be my final question before we also take hopefully some questions from the audience, but just quickly and practically, going back to the European Parliament resolution, which also contains, in the discussion around it, which contains demands or suggestions on follow-ups and concrete steps that could be taken, some of which include targeted sanctions against individuals or heightened support to to academia, basically, who have been hit rather hard through government repression, or establishing an EU or parliamentary fact-finding mission that could be more active in an ad hoc body of sorts, and as you've hinted, also increased scrutiny within the EPP when it comes to the status of SNS's associate membership, on which we've since seen some small ripples, but nothing concrete yet, I would say. What would be your, and this is a question for the entire podium, what would be your hopes or your aspirations from both the local field and in terms of international partnerships, and how can this public perception or the perception within the German Greens be translated into policy, and what can we hope for as the next concrete steps in the next 6 months?
Maybe I can just start. I mean, I would say that what we are seeing now is a complete change of the landscape. Now, how will it lead in a concrete way? I'm not sure, because there is so much work to do on this. And I think it is up to us to present some ideas, to present something that is, to ask for what we think that is good. And in the next months, I think that we need to work together on how to create political will to not just continue this business as usual situation. Because now, as also Boris said, and then that we spoke, I mean, the situation is different. People are noticing what's happening here. Also, we had this statements of Marta Kos that I think were really good. I mean, I think that it is good at what she said, and that what are demands of the protests are something that also is European Union is asking. And now we see about the foreign politics, about alignment of Serbian foreign politics with the European Union. It just got out the newest statement that Serbia cannot sit on two chairs and then expect for the European Union to give us money and then go to Russia with the situation with gas and oil. And I think this is all becoming better for us because we need a clear, stable international future into the European Union. Will it lead to concrete sanctions, which I think that are probably the most drastic measure in this demand that we said? I'm not sure, but what we would love to see is this fact-finding mission, is much more involvement here. We would like to see differences when Ursula von der Leyen came and doesn't say that Vučić is her friend who is a champion of the European integration. That changed. It's not happening anymore, but now we want to see them holding accountable and also not letting them take the money from the funds because they are having limited progress, which is we all see there is not. And we would like to see a complete and full support for the citizens of Serbia, which I think we are on the verge also. And one more thing which I think is really important, the dark side, as we call them, the regime, they're not going to sit with their hands crossed. They're not going to wait for this. They are working to manipulate the situation, to say, yeah, we have problems, but everybody has problems, to relativize, to get out of this. And also would like to stress that if we let them, then we are losing a really great opportunity in which people are said that they want change.
Add to that, I think we are already seeing some effects of not only this resolution, but of the last couple of years, the efforts that have been made. Serbia was supposed to receive 80 million euros from the growth plan. That has not happened, and what my sources tell me from Brussels, that amount will not be unlocked anytime soon because Serbia has not met the conditionalities to unlock those funds. We have seen member states like Sweden recently, their minister has made a declaration that one part of the foreign aid and money that goes to Serbia will be redirected to civil society, not government support. Okay, not all, but certain segments of the programs. Other member states are thinking the same thing. It will be very difficult, and we're not advocating for funding to be completely cut off, because especially programs that their citizens can have benefit of that. But we are asking for the European Union, whether it's the Court of Auditors or other mechanisms inside the European Parliament, to check where the money is going. This is EU taxpayer money. Is it being spent correctly in Serbia? And another question that I think this question was posed in the European Parliament was, after 15 years of sending billions of euros to Serbia, why is the support for the EU at an all-time low? Why is, finally after so long, the thinking has started after investing so much money here, yet we don't see the support for the EU rising. And of course, we tell our interlocutors, well, you have the biggest problem in Serbia, the biggest forces that work against the EU is the government, is the leadership in Serbia. It's the government-controlled media that spews anti-EU, anti-Western, pro-Russian and pro-Chinese messages directly from the Kremlin talking points at certain times. Of course, you're going to have a fall of support of the EU, and after 10 years, or no, it's going to be almost now 15 years of this propaganda, the support for the EU will fall, both from those attacks and both from the dissatisfied pro-EU voters who don't see the EU, as we talked about earlier, where it stands. So for the European Parliament, I think we also expect, and I think something that they could do, shouldn't be too difficult, is to send this fact-finding mission. Of course, if you have forces in the European Parliament, I think because all the parties have to agree on that, if you have the forces on the far right, which might be more supportive of Mr. Vučić, or certain force in the EPP, there are ways to have, just like as we have our guests here today, we will invite members of the European Parliament to come and be on the ground for several days and see what the situation is like. If that's needed, we can help our friends and partners to organize that. But I think we're going to be seeing more resolutions. Next year there will be another resolution on Serbia. There will be more debates on Serbia. And I think that since this government has not done anything to make meaningful progress, we're just going to be seeing more realistic and, as we say, harsher resolutions on that.
Well, Natan, probably the European Union has a marketing issue. We shall have some kind of section to work on promoting what we are donating. So growth plan is for the entire region, I don't know, 5 billion, 6 billion. So basically, we should do this more. But on the end of the day, it needs to be received in local authorities positively as well. So if you do on one side open the hand and on the other side slap, that doesn't work. So it's part two chairs in many ways. I would like to put one more word on the protests and on the students. I think it is a huge chance there to see and learn what they want. And I just heard one from the German administration saying, yeah, but we don't find anybody to talk to. I think this is part of the, not laziness, but kind of, I try to avoid the real issue. I try to avoid and address, because there have been students walking to Brussels, cycling to Strasbourg, or the other way around. But there have been students, if you were interested, you could have asked. Now sitting here and telling me, well, there is nobody I can talk to, well, this is part of their idea of being anonymous. They are under threat. They are under threat, they fear for their existence. We have heard about the incidents yesterday. So basically there is a personal fear that they have. And this kind of bureaucratic not understanding of the situation is something we have to deliver and bring back to Germany as well. So basically, I'm not here to be a foreign agent. I don't want to convince any of you. This is not my job, or to interfere into national politics. But if you ask European Union, how can I, be faster, a member of the European Union, or how is my development, I need not only to be nice to those who govern. That cannot work. Seriously, that's not the way it works. And for that reason, we criticize, we try to be respectful, we try to be empathic, but I think this needs to find an answer on the other side. And for the moment, I don't find this answer. Maybe I'm the wrong person, that's possible too. And seriously, we made stupid mistakes in the last government ourselves. But for some reason, there's a good situation now in exchange here to see the resolution of the European Parliament, to see that things are moving ahead, that we have exchange, and that we can learn and get solutions done together to get Serbia into the European Union, if they want. This is what you said. If it's the question, if they want. It's not the sexiest thing alive to talk about fishery and meat. Believe me, chapters 11 and 12 can be boring. But don't want to. But you close already, I think. I don't know. But on the end of the day, there was one cluster that wasn't it that one? I don't know. But seriously, on the end of the day, being part of this family in the European Union is part of being in exchange and being criticized. And this is the part of Europe that is making peace so valuable.
If I just add one short sentence also from our side, I think it's also important to not forget about the EU and our strategic partnership between the Green Left Front and a Free Citizens Movement. A colleague of ours who's here today, he labeled it as forming of a Eurobloc, which is a candy, a chocolate bar that's called Eurobloc. So we've taken over that. So we will be the Eurobloc candy. But jokes aside, I think it's important that we communicate the message that there is a healthy, positive, pro-European alternative, and that we communicate that not only to Brussels, Berlin, Paris, and the EU, but to communicate also and more loudly to our own voters and citizens that there is a strong part of the electorate that is yearning for true and strong pro-European actors, and this is what we've agreed. What is also part of our memorandum, that joining the European Union and all of the reforms that need to lead to that is something that we take extremely seriously, and something that we told the citizens is what we will immediately start implementing if given the chance to govern. And I think that is also important to help raise that support for the EU in our country.
Anton, I can give you the final statement. A lot has been said, but maybe you can just expand from your position of dealing with EU affairs within the Bundestag, and being also, we are speaking now, and that's kind of what we do here. We have this panel here, and it seems to us as an audience at moments as if the two of you will go back to Bundestag and deal with the protest movement in Serbia 24/7 in the next months and years ahead. We all know, of course, that that's not realistic, and that Germany has its plethora of issues and problems to deal with. But within those issues, what do you see as the road ahead in this also this international cooperation of, let's say, progressive forces, not just the Greens, but also the liberals in this case?
For many years, the European Union pretended that we want the countries to become a member of the European Union, and the countries pretended to make democratic reforms. And on the European side, it has changed not because the European institution and many national politicians have understood now, but because of the geopolitical necessity. And I think we should take this as a chance, because now we have really the chance to enlarge the European Union. And to do this, we have to work more closely together. We have to make it very clear that the fundamentals are important. And as people who really want these countries within the European Union, we have to be very clear. And if we say, with the course of the current government, Serbia cannot become a member of the European Union, it's because the course is anti-democratic and anti-rule of law, and too close to organized crime and to corruption. And I think it's our job to say this very clear, because to be a good friend is to speak truthfully about what's going on. And so I hope we can help you that the next elections are not even more unfair and more unfree, but that the next elections are more fair, not totally close to European Union standards, but closer to European Union standards. No one has to expect miracles, but to do more. And I always think that if reforms are done in a good way, people already see results. Because a country, it's not only for European Union when you have rule of law and when you are less corrupt. I think also the normal people profit if a government is less corrupt. So we will try to say the truth, help you, but in the end, it's a job of the people here to be to be democratic, rule of law, fight corruption, and guarantee freedom of speech and media. Because that job we can't do for you. What we can do and what has been done in the past was not always good and not always truthful, is to speak the truth and to say, with this course, you help your people, and with this course, you don't help your people. And I think that has changed at least last year, or this year at least, with the new commission, with the new resolution. So I'm hopeful at the end.
Thank you. Speaking of the people, maybe we can give a chance to the audience if somebody has a quick question. Yes?
Hello, Daniel Pantic. I'm chairman of the board of Liberal Foundation of PSG. Thank you for great contributions. Just two remarks. One is, as we collaborate here as progressives, meaning Greens and Liberals in Serbia, and we talk to fellows from Germany, colleagues from Green Party, which is great, and exchange experiences. We should not forget that strong men of Europe are also collaborating, copy-pasting the best practices for autocrats, Erdogan, with Orban, Lukashenko, Putin, and that's really happening, yeah. And that's one thing, and the other is that what's somehow been neglected by Brussels over time is that once you became a candidate country and starting the accession negotiations, it's very rare that the Commission and Parliament included would look into the quality of democracy regarding the constitutional framework of the candidate country. Meaning that when you look at the political system here in Serbia, it's not really working according to the constitution. Yeah? So we have a de facto political system which in some ways resembles to France. Yeah? We have a president according to the constitution with minimal competences. He's deciding everything. He's presenting himself as the head of the government, head of the executive branch. He's not. Under the constitution, he's not. Yeah? He's appointing ministers, prime minister, which is the most powerful position. It's a parliamentary democracy. Is an anonymous person, yeah, who is just appointed by himself, yeah. While the president is actually controlling the government, and the government is controlling the parliament largely through the ruling majority, while the executive is actually preventing judicial to do their own job, because without the assistance of police, prosecution cannot go forward. So in the foundation, we did recently a book, which I can share with you. It's in Serbia now. We will plan to translate it, which is analyzing to the point with the best Serbian constitutional law experts, the existing constitutional framework, why it's deficient, and what we could do day after when there is a change of the government, there is a breakthrough in democracy in the country, where our parties, together with other Democrats, can change the constitutional framework, because the existing one proved not sufficient. Just wanted to point out in this direction.
Thank you, Daniel. Anybody else?
Hello, thank you for the panel, and also thank you for Habes also for organizing this. So I have a question because, Nathan, you mentioned about the funds that were taken away. In some regards, to me, it's also kind of a no-brainer, because it's similar to also giving funds to the Lukashenko government. There's a government that was not elected via legitimate elections, therefore it cannot be considered a legitimate government. But my other question is, now, what are other steps that the EU can actually productively take to support a democratic overturn? And why I'm asking this is because if we're looking at the situation in Serbia, yes, the current protests are for freedom of speech, for freedom of media, for a democratic change. But what I think a lot of people are worried about mostly is about the price of living. And I think, I mean, I'm angry at the situation in the country, but I think I'm also very angry when I get my paycheck and I have to pay my bills and I have to pay my rent, and then I'm left with pittances I need to actually pay for food. And I think similarly, if we're looking to also, in Germany now we have people, the extremists that Boris mentioned, that are now at 25%, they're polling at 31, 33%, whereas their representatives are extremists. I think a lot of people that vote for them are voting for them because they're afraid of their price of life. At least some of these people. And at least I don't want to be convinced that 31% of Germans are extremists and truly believe in everything they say. So my worry is how can we actually impact this in a way that does not destroy the pitiful quality of life that we have here. And especially for a lot of us in Belgrade, this is, I mean, doable, we can make by, but for the people outside of Belgrade, and these are the people that actually organically vote for the current government, they've seen an improvement, not a huge improvement, but they've seen an improvement in their quality of life over time, and we can argue over the chance of this and the reasons for this. So how do we ensure that these people still make ends meet, but are convinced that this current government is also preventing them from seeing bigger improvements in quality of life? And if we can hear a concrete step that the EU or different parties can take in Serbia that would not be considered electoral interference or foreign agents mobilizing themselves to change the outcome, to actually assist us in this, that does not destroy the quality of life of people here.
Can I start a little bit just for the first question? Just I wanted to tell something. I mean, yes, this cooperation has been going for some time, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank you both for what we have been doing also in Berlin and regarding the fraud with the elections and with the committee and everything. And also, it was really good to have Ula Ceci and Rasmus here when they were on the protest and they were attacked from the president. And it's good. Your physical presence here also is really important because you can see for yourself. We don't have to tell you. You can see what's happening, and this is really, really great. But all this time, the other side is also doing something like that, and I was surprised and a little bit proud also that I was named personally as in one of the amendments of the European resolution as someone from the AfD. So AfD wrote an amendment asking condemnment of Radomir Lazović and Green Left Front. I'm a bit proud of this because yes, I want to be their quote enemy. Yes, I mean it's obvious they're working. They're you know, preparing the different kind of stuff, and it is a turning point for us now in this moment to work together.
Maybe to answer your question on the frustration that is there in the political system. For my federal state of Hessen, in the latest elections, or in the second latest elections, we became first in the age group of 18 to 25. That was directly after the climate movement, Fridays for Future, etc., etc. So we became first with, I don't know, 25% or something. Now in the last elections, there was first was the Conservative Party and second was the Extremist Party. And I was shocked and I asked myself what happened. It's not only the rent, it's also the future, it's also the way that we dealt with young people during COVID. It's also their, let's say, participation in discussions. Do they understand? How fast is the information? How much is the information? And that brings me to a point where we have to be in common in fighting. Discrediting and destroying political positions and persons, personal attacks are very cheap and very easy to make. You can blame someone and throw with dirt as well, flood the zone with shit, you know, all that stuff. And it becomes easy to destroy a political system. And this is the way that we just had in the Committee on Human Rights, where I'm a member of, a public hearing on disinformation and how authoritarian states work on this. And nearly all of the experts, except the one guy that the extremist party sent in. He said Hungary is a wonderful country and we have freedom of... But everybody else said it is something we have to take care of. It is cheap to destroy democratic discussions, democratic outcomes, and it's easy to you know, and to put people in a very bad light. And this is how we need to look at social networks, but also to look at how these countries come into Europe, come into my constituency and influence people. And now comes a little bigger swing, but we have learned in the last weeks that Serbia has issued passports to Russians that have been doing this. So basically, guys, why should we trust you when you bring our enemy near to my constituency? So basically, these kind of things are all connected, and this comes on the end of the day, a fight that where we stand together. And that's why we're here, that's why in exchange, that's why we're talking so much about. We had in the public hearing, I mentioned, an informatics professor. He is now a member of parliament of Taiwan. And he explained to us what civil defense means. And it's not only like a protection from airstrikes or anything, but civil defense means also to debunk that kind of misinformation that is spread, to debunk the influence of authoritarian states in your neighborhood, literally. And this is something we have to work on together. And just one more word on the Constitution. As a political scientist, I'm very happy for the brochure. I need to read this, because this is my suspicion for, I don't know how many years, you're no longer a representative parliamentarian system. Because this kind of president is not, you know, it is a presidential system, but without a presidential constitution. You don't have checks and balances. You don't have, this parliament is no longer controlling your government, and this is like a key effort. We do the household, nobody else. This is a parliamentarian right in this kind of system. So I'm looking very much to read what you have.
If I can just answer the part of your question, or try to give an answer regarding affordability and what can be done. I don't think at this moment there's a magic wand for the EU to help Serbia regarding affordability. It's unfortunately the Serbian state has failed in the last 15 or so years after the signing of the Stabilization Association Agreement to utilize a grace period where our industries, our exports were given a chance to enter the European market, given better quotas with no tariffs. We were supposed to strengthen our the Commission for Competition, I forget what the Serbian name is, Agency for Competition, which is meant to follow the competition law in the European Union to help get rid of monopolies, to help get rid of price gauging, to help get rid of uncompetitive agreements, things that would, for consumers, lower prices and reduce the rates that companies are raking in huge profits. Unfortunately, in Serbia, that's not the case, and this is something that the EU could help strengthen these commissions. But this is a process. Again, it's not a magic wand. It's a process that will take time. When you take these companies and agreements that they've made to court, and it takes a long time, but the consumer needs to be at the center. And I think this has also been realized on the EU level, and I believe in the Commission there's now a whole program to try to increase funding for housing building, to try to get the prices down. I think this is affordability questions are a global issue, but unfortunately, and we know from the years past, inflation rates in Serbia have been the highest in Europe. Even higher than in Ukraine. But what are the two countries actually with the highest inflation rates in the last 2 years after Corona? Hungary and Serbia. Two autocratic countries, countries with limited competition, with limited free markets, with control of oligarchs, and corruption is, at the end of the day, the consumer suffers from that. So increasing the rule of law and moving generally towards the European Union again, it's not a magic wand solution, but long term should help affordability, should help reduce prices, and should get some relief for Serbian citizens and consumers.
And also, which already was spoken about, propaganda and fake news and disinformation campaign, and also inflation and cost of living in a kind of way are connected. Because what is the cause that in the last years inflation was so high generally? The cause was that Russia decided to attack with a full-scale invasion Ukraine. That was the main cause. And Vučić is sitting also on the chair of Russia. So, but people never have the chance, or many people never have the chance to realize it, because you don't have freedom of media, at least not freedom of the mass media, where there's one disinformation campaign and one propaganda campaign after the other. Because if the cost of living, besides the specific causes you already mentioned for countries like Serbia and Hungary, but for whole of Europe, the cause is the attack of Russia. But most people don't know it. But if people would know it, they could ask Vučić, why are you such a good friend of Putin, when Putin, because of his attack on Ukraine, is not only causing horrible things in Ukraine, but you also make our life more expensive. But so all these things are connected. Democracy only can really work, and you can only convince people if you have free media and freedom of speech. If you don't have it, then propaganda wins. So it's so important that we are able to fight propaganda.
Do we have maybe another question? Should we call it a night? Thank you all very much. Thank you, dear panelists, and thank you for coming. See you all.